I'm Emily P. Freeman, and welcome to The Next Right Thing. You're listening to episode 370. This is a podcast about making decisions, but also about making a life. If you struggle with decision fatigue, chronic hesitation, or if you just need a few minutes away from the constant stream of information and the sometimes delightful but distracting hum of entertainment, you're in the right place for discerning your next right thing. I'm an author, a spiritual director, and an occasional workshop leader. I live in North Carolina with my family, and through my work, I've helped thousands of spiritually thoughtful people overcome decision fatigue so that they can discern their next right thing in faith, work, and life. Today, I'm so glad to welcome Kate Strickler, the creator behind the extremely popular blog and Instagram account, Naptime Kitchen. She's known for her down-to-earth practicality and home and parenting hacks. And when she isn't working or wrangling all those children, you can find her in her happy place, experimenting in the kitchen. Kate lives in Charleston, South Carolina, with her husband, Nate, and their 4 children, and I'm so glad to have her join us today. Now she has written her very first book. It's called I Just Wish I Had a Bigger Kitchen and Other Lies I Think Will Make Me Happy. In it, she shares small habits and mindset shifts to find contentment and joy in life. We'll talk more about that and more. I hope you'll listen in. Welcome to The Next Right Thing, Kate. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Emily.
Well, as we get started, what is important for us to know in order to understand who you are and where you come from?
Oh gosh, how long do we have? Well, my name is Kate. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. I am a mom of 4, married to Nate, and I am a lover of all things like practical systems. My brain just loves trying to figure out how to solve something that I feel like could have like a more systematized way of working, whether that's like making the lunches or how I organize a closet. Just my brain likes trying to find solutions to things in a practical manner.
As you're talking, Kate, I just realized I've read your whole book. I followed you on Instagram for years. Just now, in this moment in time, I realized Kate and your husband's name is Nate.
Yeah.
And I knew his name was Nate, but I never put it together that they rhymed. How's that been for you these past decades?
It's like the moment you say it, everyone's like, "Oh," and there was that I think it was John and Kate plus 8.
Uh-oh.
There was like a show on TLC.
Yeah.
I think it ended poorly for them. But especially as we were having more children, it was like, "Are you gonna get to, you're gonna be Kate and Nate plus 8?"
Mm.
But it actually, hopefully is helpful. I'm always like, "Just remember we're Kate and Nate," because it's hard to remember people's, your neighbors' names, and I'm always like, "Just remember our names rhyme, if you can remember
I'm
one of us."
I love it so much. I just can't believe I didn't put it together until you said it out loud. I'm
I know.
Kate. My husband's name is Nate.
I know.
You are and have been one of my favorite follows on Instagram, even though we are in very different life stages right now. You have 4 young kids at home. I just sent my 3rd off to college. What is even happening? It's
Wow.
an empty for now nest. I hear tell sometimes they come back, but we can talk about that later. But I will just say I have found some of the best stuff for my house, like life hacks, house hacks from your Instagram, because you're always sharing links to stuff that you use, things that like make things easier in life,
Mhm.
things that I wouldn't have thought of. I'm just like curious. What are some links of things that people are constantly DMing you about? Like, can you share that again? Or maybe like little things that you have loved and people keep asking you about.
Yes. It's funny because there's like this weird feeling online where you're like, "I don't wanna be so overly redundant,"
Mhm.
but they say that you have to say something like 5 to 7 times for someone to remember it, and so I'll be like, "Gosh, I've told somebody this like 3 times. I shouldn't possibly say it again." But then in our messages, that will be the thing that people are asking about. It's like,
Yeah.
"What's that thing? What's that thing?" As it's funny because normally it's just very timely, like, whatever the last thing I talked about is what's gonna come up. But so right now we are traveling, and so a lot of travel questions come up of like, how do you pack? How do you organize? How do you do this or that? And one of my beloved when I talk about something enough, it becomes what I call beloved. So I'll say like the beloved joggers or the beloved mesh bags. So the mesh bags, I think you probably know what I'm talking about. They're these like clear bags, but they almost look like they have a cross stitch pattern and they're labeled as mesh bags, but they're not actually mesh. Like they're waterproof, but they're clear plastic bags and they come in a set of like 30 in a million different sizes. And I use them. I'm like looking around if I can grab one to show you, Emily. I have one. Do you want to see it? Or do you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about?
you're
Okay,
gonna
hold
need to
on.
grab that.
Hold on. The one I'm showing you holds feminine hygiene products for when I'm
Oh,
traveling.
so nice.
This is one. So they have like a colorful zipper at the top and they're a million different sizes, but they are plastic. Like this one, I always have in my travel bag in case that time of the month starts. I just like have everything I could possibly need in a mesh bag. So this is probably one of the biggest things that people hear me talk about on Naptime Kitchen because we put everything in them. Like a board game breaks, goes in a mesh bag. Puzzle pieces, mesh bag. I have a tiny one in my purse that has like Band-Aids and a mini Neosporin and some Advil. Like I just organize my life in mesh bags.
Wow. Who would have thought?
I know.
What a friend you have in the mesh bag.
Well, and they're like 30 for $15 or something like that, and
Yeah.
they're super reusable, so it just also feels like it hits that really good price point of something that if it breaks, I'll buy more, but when I buy them, I get a million of them, like, it's just easy, and I just use them to organize my life.
Well, we'll definitely be sharing a link to the mesh bag, the beloved mesh
The
bag,
beloved mesh
uh,
bags.
in the show notes. And it's funny because you say, like, I always feel like I'm repeating myself, but on Instagram, that's just what we have to do.
Yeah.
Somebody's not, it's the first time someone's heard it or seen it. But I'll say, I love following you on Instagram. We'll start here because you're just so dang relatable, Kate. Like, it's just like, yeah, I get that. I doesn't feel like I'm watching you on Instagram. It just feels like you're just being a person in your day. But so I stop every time I see your face, but I have to ask well, I'll disclaim it after I ask the question, which is that something that you've had to work on? Or does it just kind of come naturally? Like, well, I'm going to turn on the camera and I'm going to say words and it feels normal.
Well, I think partly I started my Instagram in 2015, and so it was a really fun age on the internet. Well, first off, there wasn't Instagram stories yet, and so when Instagram stories started, it was the most, like, casual place to be. It's probably I'm not really on TikTok, but I would imagine it's how, like, early adopters of TikTok felt, where it's just, like, this very casual environment where they expired within 24 hours. You couldn't, like, record them ahead of time, you had to just post in the moment, so it was this ultra there wasn't any filters for them. It just was this ultra casual environment when stories started, and so I think that mentally, I was kind of early on trained, like, this is where you show up in a casual way, so that probably really helped me to continue in the way I started. Whereas now I feel like to show up on stories, if you're like first time, you probably feel like, oh gosh, what do I say? How do I show up? Do I put a filter on? Should I pre-record this? But in the back when it was 20, I remember it was 2017 because I had just had Scout and it was just like stories felt erratic. Like I was on there, there's like music playing, the kids are screaming, but nobody cared. That's kind of what that space was. I do think that I have a very sensitive filter of, does this feel fake? Do I feel fake right now? Like, I can tell really quickly if I'm like, "Oh, this doesn't feel like me," or I'm trying too hard. Because I would never say, like, "I'm just so casual. I'm always just the most casual, easy person." But I can tell if I'm, like, trying to get a point across and I'm like, I am I don't feel like myself right now. Does that make sense?
Oh, it
Like
makes perfect sense. And the reason I even hesitate in a way to ask the question is because I think the thing about social media is that we assume when something looks easy that it was easy. And I think it's sometimes that's true, but a lot of times it's not. And sometimes you really have to work hard at feeling natural
mhm.
in whatever it is you're doing, whether it's writing a caption or being behind the camera. And so I think that is something that comes with practice. But it seems like maybe you're posture toward it hasn't changed since it started out casual for you. You've been able
Yeah.
to kind of maintain that, which
And
is
and Emily, I actually really struggle to make beautiful content. I luck very luckily for me, because I started in this, like, ultra casual way, that's what people expect from me, but there are accounts that I follow that I just see do the most incredible, beautiful storytelling, and for the life of me, I just, like, can't do it. I'm like, Is your camera better than mine? Are we just aesthetically so different that I cannot make the kind of content sometimes that I'll see that I personally find to be beautiful. I just can't do it.
You mean okay, because this is actually an interesting segue between kind of like thinking about social media, but also that world of contentment and comparison and sort of
Mhm.
like so when you say you just can't make that kind of beautiful do you mean that you've tried and then you look at it and you're like, "This is trash panda content," like, or is it just like, you can't bring yourself to do it that way?
No, I just literally I do it and it's just not
And
it's ugly.
it doesn't work.
I'm just I'll see someone and they'll have, like, those perfect, like, zoom out angles where they're walking into their kitchen with a cup of coffee, and then it's just beautiful. I don't know if you follow Shelby from Pretty in the Pines. She would be someone that and like, she is wonderful. I love her, and she's not it's polished, but it's just you just feel like you're welcomed into her home in this, like, super warm and inviting and lovely way, and I just laugh because I feel like if I tried, it would just be so bad, and I have, and I'm like, "Golly, Shelby, how are you doing it?" It's just beautiful, like, it's almost like she's just good at it. It is her gifting to make to bring you through the process of putting wallpaper on her wall, but in this just beautiful way that it would not be so when if I tried. If that I
I mean, in a way, I think it would be a really fun, let's watch Kate try to do that. That'd be
Mhm.
highly entertaining, you know?
Yeah.
I think. Well, in your new book, you share pretty honestly about your own struggles with comparison and really, and I'll say it this way, working to find contentment because it's not something that's just bestowed upon us. And
Mhm.
this is a theme that pops up in your online work as well. I remember one story on Instagram in particular where you shared about how we all have those things that we notice in other people that we wish were different about ourselves. Like, for
Mhm.
example, people with really straight hair notice like someone else who has beautifully curly hair and you're like,
Yes.
"Wow, if only." Or but it also happens the other way around. Like the curly heads are like, "If only I woke up and my hair was straight." And that's just kind of a thing that we do when we're younger and maybe talk about it, but guess what? We still do it as we grow. We just don't maybe admit it or it
Mhm.
feels embarrassing. You said that often one of the first things that you notice when you meet someone is someone who has beautiful skin
Mhm.
because that's something that you've struggled with your whole life. And I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share a little bit more about that just to put this idea of contentment into your personal context.
Yes. And it's funny because if you see me now, you might be like, "Gosh, her skin looks great." Well, I went on a 6-month Accutane regimen, which was very life-changing, very intense, but worked well for me, especially prior to Accutane. It really was just this thing that I would always come back to as a struggle, and like you said, just notice people that I'd be like, "You just never have a pimple. You never have one." And I have 6 right now, and I'm covering them up with concealer, and I am frustrated by you. And for all I know, they're looking at me and noticing my hair or my body size or whatever it is. But what is so interesting, Emily, is that now I have been off Accutane for 3 months, and my skin has been clear, and now I don't even think about the skin. So it's kind of like, what's next? What's my next thing that I'm going to compare myself on? And it has definitely started to be this just whole notion of like aging well. How do I age well? How do I have one of those just like beautiful toned wow, how could she possibly be nearing 40? Look at her in a bathing suit and oh, look at her mobility. Mobility becomes this thing, but it's like, it is hilarious how once the skin issue was quote unquote solved, like how quickly my heart just moved to something else.
Mhm.
What's the next thing that I'm going to focus on? What's the next thing I'm gonna because I probably thought once my skin is clear, I will just be okay. That is the thing that would make me feel totally secure. And right when you have it, your body just or your mind just so easily leaps to what's next? What's my next thing that's going to make me feel whole?
And we all have those things. And I think it's helpful to name them. The book is called I Just Wish I Had a Bigger Kitchen and Other Lies I Think Will Make Me Happy. If we thought about it for 2 seconds, I know that we could all finish the sentence with I just wish blank. And Kate, you tackle just easy breezy topics like parenting and marriage and regret and friendship. I'm curious, are there any I just wish statements that didn't make it into the book or things that you've heard beyond the 10 that is it 10 that you mentioned in the book?
Mhm.
And beyond those, is there any other ones that maybe have come up since you've turned that manuscript in?
I think the one that comes up the most online are I just wish I was understood. Because
Mhm.
so often, especially because of the, like, pace online and I might have like, let's say, the Accutane is a perfect example of if you followed me for the last 6 months, you are hyper aware that I had unclear skin, I did something about it, and now my skin is clear. But if you started following me last week, you would not even have any idea that I ever had zits, that that was ever a struggle of mine. So there's just this whole background
Yeah.
that's not present, and there's so many instances online where you just don't get that because of how quickly it moves, and so it's like my desire always is to be like, "We're doing this thing," but it's because I don't know if you remember, but, like, 5 years ago, I really wanted to, and then we did this, and then we thought about it for a while, and then now we're doing it, but you can't over explain, but
Yeah.
my probably I just wish I was understood coupled with I just wish people liked me, like that desire to be liked. I think those come up all the time for me of just wanting to, like, over explain or be like, "You don't have to do it this way. It's okay if you don't want to," or, "I just do it
Yeah.
this way because this is why it works for me." A desire to always be understood in a
Yes.
and unfortunately, in a context that is, like, super easy to not be understood,
Right.
and the book
Right.
is beautiful. The beauty of the book truly is that I was like, "Oh my gosh, I have a whole chapter to explain myself on this," versus I have 45-second reel, and hopefully you take it the right way.
And that whole thing that you just kind of beautifully summed up is so often part of what contributes to decision fatigue because maybe it's we are thinking of all those factors that aren't said or spoken that go into decisions that we make,
Mhm.
but all the person can see is the outcome of the decision or the step 10 when there were all these decisions that came before it. When I think about my own I just wish statements, like so many of the ones that you shared in your book resonate with me. I also thought of one which might not be very interesting to read in a whole chapter, but one is, I just wish I were more naturally lighthearted. I think sometimes I will, you talked about the skin, like, used to be one of the first things you notice in people, and I notice, like, someone who's just like, "Hey, everything we can see the bright side," like, just naturally kind of does that, and I'm like, "Wow," like, I find myself kind of glazing over and watching them being like, "Okay, what are the mechanics behind how
Mhm.
you move through the world in a way that's not like" I wouldn't call myself melancholy on the outside, but I think on the inside, that's sort of my bent, and sometimes, like, it's great, it's fun, I can be that way, but there are times when I just wish I was more naturally, like, easy breezy, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah.
Another one for me is I just wish I worked at a faster pace.
Mhm.
And same, like, I wish I was a faster reader. I wish I could, like, be more productive. Like, this is all very revealing when we start to really,
Yeah.
like, dig into what are the things that I find myself just wishing.
Yeah. And, it's funny, I was talking to someone recently about this. 'Cause sometimes I think my "I just wish" statements are rooted in something true that I am believing, like, about finances or beauty or whatever it is. But I was talking to someone recently and I was like, Nate is just so able to just disconnect in the middle of the day and sit and like read a book for a little bit and just enjoy that time. And they were like, "Do you want to sit down in the middle of the day and read a book?" And I was like, "You know what? I actually don't think that I do." But it's like this reading for some reason is always put on this pedestal of like people that read are better. And I'm with you. I'm like a slow reader. I'm like, here's the half of a book I read this month. Would you like the book review on my half of a book? But in my head, I had decided like sitting down to read for a moment in the middle of the day means that he's more relaxed or more able to have a balanced day. And they were just like, "Well, do you want to do that? Like, maybe you want to that's not relaxing to you, or you want to just work from 9 to 4 or whatever it is. And then at the end of the day before bed is when you're gonna read, but you don't want to break up your day in that way." It was just funny how I had almost made a wish statement off of something that I actually don't even value.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're right." And it was like the one question, like, freed me. Like, I need to stop, like, trying to make myself read in the middle of the day because I actually don't want to.
It's such a great reframe to think of it that way, and you talk about it kind of as, like, what game are you playing
Mhm.
and how, if you don't like, let's don't compete in a game that we don't really care about winning. That
Mhm.
feels like a good thing to do as a human. I like that idea. I pulled out Kate. So, like I said, there are 10 chapters in your book, as you know. But for anyone listening, it has kitchen in the title, but it's not all about kitchens. That's where we begin.
That's
But
true.
I pulled out 3 that I just wanted to hear you kind of riff on a little bit more. And the first is I just wish I was a better mom. This hit home for me, particularly the parts you share about your own mom and how you grew up with her and kind of how you see mothering as a kid, but then now also as a mother. And I
Mhm.
guess every stage of parenting invites different versions of the same question. I just wish I was a better mom. Like, you think differently about that when they're infants than you do when they're in college, which I guess really begs the question for all of us is what is my definition of a good mom? So I'm
Mhm.
curious if you would share yours.
Yeah. I in this chapter, I really kind of double down on this whole thought of I really don't wanna focus so much on, like, who I am as a mom. I want to focus on who I am as a person because that just feels much more it's going to bleed into my motherhood, and it's going to carry me so much further, and it almost feels more, like, sustainable than being like, "Who will I be in their 1st through 5 years of life where I need to, I only get so many summers," or all the things, versus, like, how do I as Kate be, like, patient as a person? How do I cultivate, like, just these characteristics that I would want to have as a part of my motherhood, but don't tie them so intensely to motherhood? Just because I feel like the identity crisis in motherhood happens a lot more, almost like you were saying, like, you have a child leaving for college, and then it's like, "Okay, who am I now?
Mhm.
How am I a mother now?" Versus, like, your child just being like, "My mom was kind. My mom was patient." These things that you can continue to, like, want to be, whether your child is 2 or 22. And so, with my own mom, I really don't have a lot of super specific, like, "My mom did this." Like, this was her as a mom. We had a babysitter multiple mornings a week where I think she did some volunteer work, like, she just would go and do things. She was not always around. We all went to school, just like a classic school for 8 hours, but I do, like, remember my mom barely ever yelled. She just wasn't someone who yelled. There's just, like and she still is that way. So I guess it's things that I'm like, okay, who she was when I was 12, I still notice those characteristics about her now that I'm 36. But I don't have these really intense, like, this is what she did for me on my 5th birthday. So it I I'm it's funny because on the one hand, I think it takes a lot of pressure off of, like, these, like, things that we really focus on of, like, what is the right decision to make here?
Yeah.
Can I make a bad decision for whether or not I let my child have a 10th birthday party? But there's also a pressure on because it's like, no, but who you are is really what they're going to remember, like, just the who you are as a person.
I'm so glad you point that out because it's something that I repeat a lot when it on a podcast about decision making
Mm,
and when we can get so stirred up about what is the right decision
yeah.
and or what is just a decision? What should I do? Sometimes we can just be frozen in indecision, especially when it comes to parenting because there's a million decisions you're making in the first hour of the day. Sometimes it feels like. And so I agree so wholeheartedly with you, Kate, that it's so much less about the decisions that you're making than it is about the person who you are becoming. And that feels like good news to me because we're still becoming people. Like you talk about the summers, like I'm on my 19th summer with our son, and he is going off to college, and our twins are already getting ready to be seniors in college. And
Mhm.
so there is a world where I could be looking back and just live in this like, well, I didn't do that right. I didn't get that right. I didn't know that yet. I would have done this differently. I mean, you can really get caught up in it. And on the flip side, when they start out, I remember dreading future regret,
Mm.
thinking like, I'm gonna one day know something better that I don't know now. And I'm gonna, I'm already anticipating regretting how I'm
Mm.
doing this. And you can just get so caught up and then you get paralyzed with like what I can't make. But I think remembering, like, you know what? I am learning to become a person who I wanna
Mhm.
be a person who is cultivating patience on purpose, that puts myself in the way of God, in the way of hope, so that maybe in the moment of decision, those things are what comes out of me
Yeah.
naturally. What great parenting advice. What great humaning advice,
Yeah.
I should say.
Yeah, and the other part I would say that has really freed me up in my motherhood is I didn't make this up, it's very popular right now, but I am really trying to help my kids see I'm parenting for the first time. So, apologizing and being like, "I was really unkind back there, and I was short with you because I was frustrated about these 2 other things, and I took it out on you, and I'm sorry that I did that." And just, like, let them I want them to see me make mistakes so that when they're a parent, they can be like, "Oh, yeah, mom said that mom had to apologize to me," or and so it was funny the other day to my son, John Robert, I was like, "You know what, Johnny? I have never, ever parented a 10-year-old." And he looked at me like, like, "Well, duh." And I was like, "I just wanna make sure you know, I've never done this before, so I'll probably make some mistakes, FYI." And
I love it.
just helping him be like, "Hey, I don't know everything either. We're gonna do this together. I'm gonna make some mistakes. I'll might say I'm sorry for screwing something up." So hopefully they can go into, parenthood with a not this ideal of perfection that they have to hit.
Yeah, like they're supposed to be some type of expert.
Yeah.
Because there is like this idea of like you're kind of you're the leader and
Mhm.
you're the expert and we have ideas about what that means. But I've learned so much, especially in the past 5 to 8 years, how our kids are our teachers. And, sometimes they take the lead. And I don't mean like, oh, like they're making the decisions for the family. I just mean there are ways in which the kids can we can take them by the hand and follow where they're going in the world of curiosity and hope and questions and this can be a really formative thing for me and I become a more me mom than I would have been without that.
Mhm.
A second I wish statement, Kate. I just wish I had more friends.
Yes.
And there's something you said about your college friendships. You said, quote, "If college friendship was a greenhouse, making mom friends was rocky soil in a dry climate." And I'm curious, does this still feel true for you?
It doesn't in the same way, but it's been really cool because I think when your kids are young, it really is on you to try and make friends because it's not like your 2-year-old is out there doing the work for you. But now well, we have some really good things set up for us in that our kids go to the neighborhood public school, and we live in a neighborhood with a ton of kids. And so our friends have really become our neighbors. And a lot of that has happened because they have kids that are friends with my kids. And then we naturally get each other's numbers because the kids want to hang out. Like the kids have started to they've been a big catalyst for a lot of my good friends now is because our kids are friends. And so it's funny how in the earlier years, they make it harder. And again, if you don't there's some things working in my favor, like being in a neighborhood that the kids can ride their bikes around and my older kids being social. So it doesn't feel that way as much, but it is so funny. We really don't have any desire to move, but every so often, I'm just in a neighborhood in Charleston, not near the water necessarily, and I'm like, "Gosh, it's so hot. Where should we go?" But, we have lived there for 7 years, and really in the last 2, I would say, really feel like we just have some great neighborhood friends. But it took years, like, it really takes and Nate was like, "I do not want to do this again." Like, he's like, "This was, like, 7 years to really." So, college is 4 years, and for most, and it's like I went from, like, a tiny little seedling to a full-grown plant with people, whereas I do feel like it's just so much slower.
Yeah.
It is so much slower because probably in college, I would see one person 10 times a week, and now I see someone 10 times over the course of 3 months. So it's just slower in the growth process.
This reminds me of I used to, when I was in college and even some in the last even this still exists in me, is kind of an allergy to small talk. But
Mm,
I think it was, during, maybe 2020, 2021 when most of us were not seeing a lot of people at the post office or, you know, at the mailbox
mhm.
or, at the pool or whatever. And I found I really missed small talk. I missed just like shooting the breeze and talking about something that wasn't so serious and those casual connections that you make with the barista at the coffee shop that
Confidence.
you always go to. I found I really missed those. And I think now at this stage in life, those are sometimes how you see your people. It's that level of connection that that's like what you get, when
It
it
was.
comes to friendship. And so that the whole like I just wish I had more friends, I think can mean more in number. Sometimes it can also show up as I wish I had maybe not more friends, but maybe different types of friendships available to me. Like I
Mhm.
know right now in this season of my life, and for me, like we had really wonderful friendships. And then we left our church 5 years ago.
Mm.
And that was where, like, when I would see those friends, that's where I saw them. We had a small group together. We would, you just show up for stuff. You're serving, you're doing things. And then when we left that church community, we're sort of part of another one now, but it's different.
It's
And
new.
those are that we're new there. And so those connections are more casual. They depend more on those like over many, many months or even years, you kind of get to know someone. Now I have a lot of really close one-on-one friends, but those people don't necessarily know each other. And so I'm
Mhm.
not like, let's go out with the girls. Like that's not my life. But I find that, and that might not always be true, but these I just wish statements, they change over time. And I think it's helpful for me to name kind of
Yeah,
what the current thing is.
yeah. And it's funny because I really don't I think if we were all honest with ourselves, most of us don't wanna be included in everything. You would be, like, exhausted.
Yeah, that's right.
But with the moment you're not included in something, which still happens to me, especially because I'm in a neighborhood, I can drive down the street and see 3 cars at one house and be like, "Oh, they're all
Yeah.
hanging out." And I can make an entire narrative of, like, they've had this plan forever. They actually probably said, "Should we invite Kate?" No, let's not invite her. Whereas, like, in reality, it could have just been that, like, one of them showed up at the house to pick up a coat they're borrowing, and the other one came over because their kids like, it could have been the most organic, spontaneous, or it could truly be that they were like, "Hey, we're gonna have 2 couples over tonight, and these are the
Yeah.
2 we're gonna have." I wasn't even it just wasn't on the radar. Like, I wasn't a part of it, but my insecurity can make an entire narrative centered around me and how I'm not liked or they don't want me, which I really think for the majority of people is not normally the case. We just create an entire situation where we people don't like us for one reason or another. And I don't wanna ever discount someone that is genuinely feeling discluded from a group or just feeling hurt in that way, but I know personally, I just will create a narrative that centers around me when I wasn't ever a part of it to begin with.
And the narrative that you create is never positive. It's never like, "They're planning a surprise party for me." It's always, like, negative, like, this is terrible,
Mhm.
and it's the worst thing ever, and it's
Yeah,
because of me, probably.
yeah.
I don't do other people everyone does that, right? I feel like we do.
I would hope so. Hopefully it's not just us, Emily.
Once again, I just wish I was more lighthearted. There it is. It comes out all the time. The final "I just wish" statement is I mean, we could go into all of them, but the last one I wanted to just kind of land on is, I wish that had gone better. I just
Mm.
wish that had gone better. What are some of the things that you wish had gone better?
Normally, I share some in the book, just some, like, bigger ones, specifically postpartum with Alberta, which she was, like, our final child, and so there was just a lot of heartache around my postpartum experience. I had awful issues nursing. I had postpartum anxiety, like, could barely leave the house at times, which is very unlike me, but unfortunately, I just didn't know it until it was over. It wasn't like in the I knew something was wrong, but you're so sleep deprived. I didn't think in the moment, like, I should probably, like, talk to my doctor about this. It was more just like, let's just make it through the day. And then 4 months later, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I was not in a good place."
Yeah.
And Nate was working a ton. It was just a rough season. Now I feel like my I just wish that had gone better are just relational conversations and pockets with my children where I go into their room at night and they're asleep and I'm like, earlier they tried to tell me something and I just blew them off. Or I was trying to do something for work and they came in and instead of just calmly being like, "Hey, I'll talk to you in 10 minutes. I need to do this for work." I snapped at them. Just these like short things where I'm like, "Gosh, I really wish I had." It's a lot of them feel parenting related, especially as my kids get into those like really feel like sensitive ages where they just kind of need to know that you love them and are there. So,
What would you say is the opposite of wishing something had gone better?
oh, good question. I think it would probably be well, I think in parenting and really just in life, it's just this being comfortable with I don't wanna say regret, but just being comfortable with the fact that things often don't go how you expect them to, and I put a quote, I can't remember it, which is embarrassing, but it's C.S. Lewis, and he's like, "If you think of this life as just this, like, happy playground, then you're gonna find yourself disappointed often, but if you think of life as, like, a training ground where things are going to be harder, then it can actually end up being a lot more enjoyable." So I guess just this expectation of myself that every day I will probably have the thought of something I wish that had gone better, and if I think if I expect that, then I'm not so, upset by it, you know? Because even, like, we're on a trip with our kids right now, and it is just so wonderful. But even sometimes I'm like, "Oh, I just wish I had just sat outside and enjoyed the sunset a little bit longer." And it's like, "Well, Kate, you were done, okay? You were ready to go inside. You were kinda cold, so you came inside." Like, I think there's just this desire to, like, suck every beautiful moment out and to be like, "No, actually, the bugs came out, and so you went inside, and it's okay. That's how it ended."
What's something you know now after writing this book that has surprised you?
Whew. Well, I think it would be that writing it down didn't wasn't like waving a magic wand for myself or that even understanding the why, like deeply understanding some of the whys behind why I struggle with the contentment in a certain area doesn't cure me. So like if you get snappy with your children and you know why you get snappy with your children. You know what the trigger is. It doesn't mean that it's like, oh, then you just never do it anymore.
Final question, Kate. What is your next right thing? And everything counts, big, small.
We are entering, so I don't exactly when this podcast will launch, but we are about to enter kind of like the biggest busy season probably with our family of I'm going to release a book, I'm going to do a small book tour, I'm going to be away from home. And so I'm really trying to mentally prepare myself for that so that when that comes, I'm not like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. It's like, yeah, I know. We knew you were going to be busy. And so I'm just asking myself a lot of questions of like, what can I be doing now to make that season easier?
Thanks for joining me, Kate.
Thank you, Emily.
Thanks for listening to episode 370 of The Next Right Thing. I hope this simple practice of loving the life you already have can be just one more rung on the trellis upon which your rhythm of life can continue to grow. Because while it's true this is a podcast about making decisions, the bigger truth is our daily decisions are making our lives. You can find Kate online at naptimekitchen.com or on Instagram at naptimekitchen, and you can purchase I Just Wish I Had a Bigger Kitchen and Other Lies I Think Will Make Me Happy wherever books are sold. Before we go, do you know that I send out a letter on the last day of every month where I always share the books I'm reading and 3 questions for reflection for you to think about the last month before moving on into the next month. I also, by the way, always answer those questions. You can sign up at emilypfreeman.com/letter. It's free and will arrive in your inbox on the last day of the month. We'll leave a link in the show notes because, of course, we will. As always, you can find me online at emilypfreeman.com and on Instagram at emilypfreeman. A big thanks to Ashley Sherlock, who keeps us organized, and the team at Unmutable, who edits all of our episodes. In closing, here are a few words from Kate's book. As you discover how to live and mother in ways that work for you and your family, you'll stop just wishing your life away and begin to truly enjoy the one you already have. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.